Welcome back to ChowTimePod. It's your host, Red. I got a video today from Chris Williamson. The Dark Truth of Me Too comes out with Lois Perry. Let's see what she has to say. Please subscribe down below. I really appreciate that. Let's get that chow. It's chow time.
What do you think the fallout of Me Too has been now, approaching 10 years hence?
I often hear from men that they are now more reluctant to go up to a woman in a bar or whatever. That there's this problem of fear of being falsely accused of something. And so I believe them, if some men are experiencing that. I'm sure, though, what's gone on is that the men who are already sexually aggressive and likely to actually be, Me Too perpetrators haven't changed their behavior at all.
Nope.
And the men who started being really careful were probably fine to begin with.
If you were a raper, the recent social media campaign probably, they've got a hashtag on Twitter, I'd better stop going around raping.
Yeah, which is, I wrote about in my first book, and it applies to this as to loads of things, the problem of normal distribution, where you have some trait which is arranged on a bell curve. And the problem is that if you apply some intervention, so whatever that is, like a social movement like Me Too or some policy change or whatever, probably what you want to do is you want to actually target one of the tails. You want to, so we've got we've got a bell curve of sexual aggression, and there's this like most aggressive end who are causing no end of harm. What we want to do is make them stop. But you can't just apply an intervention to that point on the normal distribution. Like, it's going to shift in one way or another, and everyone is going to be affected.
You're smearing the entire group with the same solution.
So what you end up with is moving the threshold for being like...
This is exactly what those warning labels are, right? I always talk about the warning labels because they're like the easiest example to go to. It was probably one guy that drank some bleach, or a couple guys that drank some bleach, and now bloop, they plastered a warning label, don't drink the bleach. All of these things, like no smoking at the gas pump, no fucking doing a lot of these weird little things that you would have thought, you need a sign for this? There was some idiot that needed the sign.
Reluctant to go up to a woman in a bar or whatever, slightly, just to mean that like some of the nice guys are not doing it. But that doesn't actually improve, it doesn't affect the rapists. And it doesn't improve women's experience of it. David
Buss's book, Bad Men, talks about it's one man doing 1,000 sexual assaults, not 1,000 men doing one sexual assault.
Yeah.
It's repeat offenders over and over and over and over again. And unfortunately as well, repeat victims. There is something about the way that, again, this isn't victim blaming, but it is like something about the way that women hold themselves, where they showed this to, I think, maybe criminals in prison or assaulters or men that had assaulted people, and showed them a number of women walking, and they asked them to pick which one they would attack if they were going to, and they converged on the same women. So, for all that we can say, it's not about wearing the skirt, it shouldn't be about being in the dark alley at the wrong time, all the rest of it, like, correct. But there is something about particular women that causes predators to see them as viable prey.
We don't talk about this often, but we hear about, when kids were sexually abused or they were abused when they were kids, it's easier for adults to see that in them. Like, that's crazy that it also applies to the predator and prey victim mentality. I don't want to say victim mentality, like the predator prey dynamic is what I'm trying to say.
Does that excuse it? No. Does that, is that them choosing it? Also no. But like, this is just the way that the world appears to be.
Yeah.
It's ruthless.
Yeah. And it drives me mad that we tell lies to girls all the time about this, because we're so desperate not to appear to be victim blaming, that will say, oh no, you can behave like a man, you can do whatever you want, go back to some random guy's house, it'll be fine. And then when it inevitably isn't fine, we're like, oh well, he shouldn't have been sexually aggressive. I was like, yes, obviously, but we don't, I would love to just like delete every rapist from the world all at once. I can't do that. Like, if the advice that I'm going to be giving my daughters is going to be, unfortunately, different from the advice I'll give my sons.
What would be the advice that you'd give them?
It's like, for instance, don't go back to a random man's house that you've just met. like basic, okay, like considered to be completely commonsensical up until even like the 1980s. You know, this is like recent stuff, but basically unsayable now in feminist circles, at least. Except everyone quietly says it. You know.
Well, again, it's the stated and revealed preferences
Yeah.
thing. Like, how many parents that will proselytize about this on CNN and say that, you know, we shouldn't be telling women, oh, so you're saying that we should just accept the fact that men are going to do this. It shouldn't be that women should change their actions, men should change their behavior. Okay, what did you tell your 17-year-old daughter to do last weekend? Did you say, make sure that you text me when you get home, make sure that you're home before 11, etc.?
Don't get an unlicensed taxi, whatever. Yeah.
Stated and revealed preferences.
Yeah. And what drives me bananas is that there are some girls who don't actually have parents or friends or whoever who are privately telling them the truth. You know, all they hear is the public misdirection.
Oh, this is like the luxury beliefs of Me Too in a way.
Yeah. And so I feel as if actually we have a duty, people who are speaking publicly, to tell those girls the truth on the assumption that they're not going to hear it.
I mean, I wish there was more women that watched my channel, but we tell the truth all the time. Not that we're trying to dog women or trash women. No, most of the things we're saying is exactly how we feel towards women. Yes, there are some of us down there that are quite upset, but I don't know, as a whole for my channel, I would love for men and women to get back together and, you know, commingle a little bit more. Just even talk to each other a little bit more in the West. I'm happy with that. Just how things are now, we're literally at war. Like, there's women that want to kill men, there's men that want to kill women, and it's been a harsh battle for the last 10 years at least.
From anyone else.
It's the cultural surrogate mothers in a way.
Yeah.
You've got this line between consensual and good, which I think relates to Me Too as well. What's that?
I think that a lot of there's a lot of things that came under the Me Too banner. Some of it was just unambiguously criminal, and, you know, Harvey Weinstein or whatever got sent to prison for criminal acts. A lot of what came up, though, a lot of the stories that got shared were things that weren't actually strictly criminal. It was just like bad behavior. It was behavior that actually in another era you probably would have been called ungentlemanly or something like that. But that vocabulary isn't available to a sort of contemporary feminist who's really bought into the sex positive message. And so they'll tend to just talk about things being consensual or not consensual. And actually the consensual, not consensual bar is like a low one. It's a legal bar. It's not actually a moral bar, really. Like, there are a lot of things that a man can do on a first date or whatever that are legal but are bad. Plenty. But we don't really have the vocabulary to describe them, which is why I try and make, you know, like, the feminist case for chivalry. We shouldn't have got rid of that as a concept. Like, when you have this, as stark a physical difference.
Oh, shit. She hit on a fucking landmine right there. She's right. Because women destroyed chivalry, the good actions and the gentlemanly actions that men used to take with women have been disintegrated. Now, look at how men treat women. Because of Me Too, most men do not respect women anymore. Isn't that crazy? Just because of this particular movement and so much false allegations got thrown out there that a lot of men now look at women as straight up liars.
And psychological differences between the sexes. You know, 99% of men can kill 99% of women with their bare hands, and not vice versa.
Easy.
We have to operate with that recognition. Chivalry in those circumstances is obviously in women's interests, even if occasionally it will mean feeling slightly patronized. Like, who cares? I'm so happy to have the door held open for me and my bags carried. It's completely fine.
If it means that someone's not going to assault me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is, I quote you and Mary about this all the time, that it is a straight line from you should hold the door open for a woman to you shouldn't beat your wife. It is one just continuous, women are worthy of protection, and there is an asymmetry between what men and women can do.
Yeah.
And again, Rob Henderson's coming a couple of days later than you. It's like luxury beliefs all over again.
Yeah.
Like the women who come from societies where their husbands already knew that beating your wife would be a bad idea, or they had the support networks where that wouldn't be accepted, were trying to deconstruct a support structure that was needed for the underclass women whose husbands had grown up without a father and whose stepdad had beaten them, who just presumed that the way that you were supposed to be in a relationship was to hit your wife.
Yeah. I mean, I just, like, Chesterton's fence, like the wisdom of it. You know, this idea from G.K. Chesterton, you know, you come across a fence in a field, you don't know what it's there for. The progressive, the reformer, whatever vocabulary he uses, says, we don't need this fence, let's tear it down. Whereas the conservative says, no, let's find out what it's for. And then maybe we might tear it down if it turns out that it really isn't necessary. I mean, just the whole last 100 years has been like
Fences
non-stop vindication of Chesterton's fence principle.
It's
Yeah.
true.
And I honestly think that most,
Like, the biggest example of that is cops, right? We would defund the police, get rid of the police, fire all the police. And you're seeing the repercussions of that, of just blowing up gates without even wondering, why do we have police? Why do we fund it this way? Why do we give them this much money? Oh, it's because they protect and they do certain things that we need.
most of it actually is to do with technology. Like, much as I love to complain about my political enemies, like, actually the main thing that's changed for people has not been the intellectuals of the 1960s. It's been the dissolution of the family has as much to do with the pill as it does with anything any feminist has ever said. You know, like the real. I'm very sort of materialist in this sense. I think the real engine of history is technology.
Wasn't
or
it?
as Mary Harrington, our friend, likes to say, it's material reality plus memes.
Shout outs to Chris. That was some damn good chow. And Lois, you know, it's nice to get a perspective of how women are seeing it and how women are trying to combat it themselves through the back end of how they teach women, how they talk to women, especially about these Me Too type things. Please subscribe down below. I really appreciate that. And I'll catch you guys next time. Ciao.